Are your orchid leaves turning yellow and you're not sure why? Before you panic or throw them out, let's uncover the reasons why they're turning yellow. Perhaps your orchid is trying to tell you something important, and let's find out what that is. And as we can see on these, the leaves are yellowing in different areas of the plant. So this could mean that there's a difference in them. So let's put this one aside because this one's something else. We'll get to that in a minute. So what do we do when we see our yellowing orchid leaves? First of all, we need to inspect our plant. This is the only way you're going to find out what the problem with your plant is, by going through your plant carefully and step by step to try and figure out what the problem is and what the cause of this yellowing is. Yeah, we notice the leaves that are yellowing are the lower leaves, but not all of them. We can also see a nice shiny new growth. The leaves are pretty turgid, they're pretty strong and don't seem to be dehydrated terribly much, but we still have some yellowing on two of the big leaves. They are the lower leaves, so what could that mean? First of all, going through an inspection like this, we can check for any insects or insect damage in and around your plant to ensure that's not one of the causes. And here we can see there's no insects, there's no mealybugs, there's no spider mites. There's nothing like that that could be causing yellowing of the leaves, because insect attacks can actually also cause problems with your leaves that will cause yellowing. But with this specific one, once you've checked in through it and you can see that there's nothing attached to your orchid, you know it's not a pest. And what about diseases such as bacterial rot or fungi? They also cause yellowing of leaves. But if you look here, there's no fungal spots. None of those black spots that generally come along with the fungal diseases, those dead, dying necrotic spots or the necrotic areas. Also with bacterial rot, you'll often see little patches that are soft and mushy, and there's none of that. And those will also generally be black or brown. But here we just have this basic yellowing all the way through the leaf with a little bit of green left on where the leaf is trying to keep itself alive. So we've ruled out insects, we've ruled out infections. What else could it be? Is it too much light? If it was too much light, you'd probably see the yellowing on the top surfaces of the highest leaves, because that's where the most light is going to get. And here we can see the yellowings happening on these leaves that are behind other leaves. It's not necessarily going to be light related at all, because your light is coming from a specific direction, and those areas that are getting the majority of the light are the ones that are going to be affected. So it's not really light. Could it be any other environmental conditions such as cold? Cold or excessive cold can also cause yellowing of the leaves, but often you'll see that starting on the extremities as the cold leaches its way into the plant. So this doesn't look like it's cold damage, because there's other parts of the leaves that are more exposed that haven't been damaged at all. So probably not cold. So now again, we've ruled out insects, we've ruled out infections, we've ruled out the climate. What else could be the possible cause of yellowing? Nutrient deficiencies. Nutrient deficiencies can also cause yellowing in leaves. But if I've been feeding my orchids all along and the other ones aren't nutrient deficient, why would one specific one become nutrient deficient as opposed to the others? Is this plant nutrient deficient? And what different nutrients cause different yellowing, so that will help us understand what might be going wrong here? Well, with nutrient deficiencies, often it's these lower leaves that are affected first, as the plant draws out nutrition from those lower leaves to keep the top growth going, so it's got a better chance of survival. Any nutrients that are in here will be drawn out. That will cause decomposition or decay of the chlorophyll, which then causes this yellowing color, because the green color in the leaves is chlorophyll. When the green goes away, you'll know your chlorophyll is going away. There's very little to no chlorophyll in these, and we need to understand now, why is that happening? Why is the plant taking away the resources of this leaf, but the rest of the plant looks healthy? The only way we're going to be able to inspect further now is by opening it out. Opening out the pot and seeing what's happening to the roots. The orchid is running out of nutrients, so what it does, it draws out as much nutrient and moisture from the leaf as possible. It's a relatively slow process, so if it happens overnight, then it's possibly something more serious than a nutrient deficiency that the plant is trying to rectify by drawing out the nutrition or the NPK, the nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium that's available in this leaf. It can only draw out the movable nutrients. Things like your iron and your calcium are going to remain in the leaf, and that's why those sorts of nutrient deficiencies are shown elsewhere other than in the older leaves. They'll be shown in the newer leaves because the newer growth won't have those nutrients to continue their growth. So if you're seeing yellowing of the top growth, then you know it's one of those immotile nutrients that is deficient. But if you see yellowing of the lower leaves, it's removal of the motile nutrients and of course the decay of the chlorophyll. But nutrient deficiencies are not the only reason that the older leaves can start dying off. For instance, if you have large healthy plants like this and you have the very oldest leaves underneath going yellowing and dying off, it's probably just senescence. And like all of us, we have a timestamp, and when our time is up, our time is up. So they'll drop off these older leaves as they continue to grow up. But if you've got a full healthy plant like this with just one or two of the very lower leaves yellowing and dying off, it's probably no problem at all. It's probably just old age of those bottom leaves. But in this case here, we have the very oldest leaf, which is still green, and the two leaves above it that are yellowing with some nice top growth still growing well. So this is probably not the senescence of the old leaves. This is obviously something slightly different. So that's why you need to inspect your plant and understand what's happening at each phase so that it can give you a better idea of what's happening with your orchid. So now that we've gone through all of that and we realize it's possibly some sort of nutrient deficiency, I'm not necessarily going to say that it's dehydration, because dehydration can also cause yellowing of the leaves. But generally, as the dehydration happens, so you land up with slightly more limp or wrinkled top leaves as well. And even these lower leaves haven't gone wrinkled and limp. They're still actually quite firm, but they've just yellowed. To me, it's suggesting nutrient deficiencies. So let's open up the root system, because all my other orchids are doing fine except for this one. My feeding regime is right for it. If you haven't been using a proper feeding regime, then perhaps you need to look at ensuring you're getting all the NPK to the plant that it needs, along with those micronutrients. And then you may want to give it a boost with something like your garlic water or garlic tonic, maybe a little bit of seaweed tonic, and maybe even some vitamin B. We'll drop links to all of those videos in the description box below. So let's open this out and see what the problem is. Remember, our orchid is telling us something with the yellowing of the leaves, and we need to look and see what it could be. There we go. We can see the media's very wet. It's way too moist for what it should be. We can see the roots are a little bit rotten and mushy. There are some nice firm roots that are a little bit green from a bit of algae, but that's not really terribly much of a problem. Also, a little bit of the garlic tonic will help sort that out. Deadness to the roots, so we just go to remove all of those old roots. It'll remove those old flowering spikes. And we see this still has the plug. This still has that death plug involved in it, so that's got to come out. And quite frankly, it looks like we were doing this all just in time. We don't have too much damage to the root system. Although we can start to see the root system itself is not as large as it should be for the amount of leaf volume that there is. So the roots weren't able to draw up enough nutrition and moisture to keep the leaves, all the leaves, healthy all the time. So that's why we still have some good strong top growth. There was obviously way too much moisture in this media, that the feed that we were giving it wasn't being absorbed properly, and perhaps it wasn't being flushed properly because the media was so dense that the salts were staying in the media and not being able to be flushed out. All of that can cause problems too, because remember, as the salt levels in your media increase, so it makes less of those nutrients available to your plant. It sours the media, also making the pH higher, which means it's more acidic. And the more acidic your pH gets over a certain point means that a lot of those salts are no longer available to your orchid. Your orchid is not able to absorb them. So there we go. That's all that this was a matter of. It was a matter of the orchid telling me that it needed to be repotted, that the roots were starting to struggle, and we got it at a point early enough that we still have a good root volume that we're working with, although it wasn't big enough to maintain the whole plant itself. And these old yellowing leaves I'm not going to remove. I like to leave them on until the plant itself has been able to remove all the nutrients and moisture that it itself needs from those leaves. I don't have to worry about excessive transpiration from these yellowing leaves, because as your leaf starts to go through this process, those stomata become less and less active. So there's less and less transpiration happening from these yellowing leaves. You don't have to worry terribly much about your older leaves drawing moisture or energy or anything from your plant. In fact, it's the other way around. The plant is removing all of that good stuff that it needs from these old leaves. So leave them on until they dry out and basically fall off by themselves. Also, if you are cutting off these old leaves at this point, remember your plant is busy drawing in from them. So you are opening up a wound that could be open to infection, and that infection will then spread straight into the center of your plant because your plant is busy trying to absorb all those nutrients. So it's an inward motion happening at the moment that could be disastrous. So rather, don't mess around with these leaves. It's probably safer to leave them attached to your plant. They're not going to be there for terribly long, so don't worry about that too much. Consider it as an extra color bonus to your plant. But really, these leaves will fall off after a while themselves. So that just goes to show the plant itself was telling me something important. And if I didn't listen to it in time, I would have lost the majority of this root volume, and then we would have really been struggling to keep the baby alive. Let's look at that other one that had yellowing at the top. Here we go. Also, we can look directly at the top here, and we can see that yellowing of the top leaf. It's the very last leaf that has been produced. This leaf was a previous one, and this one comes out through the center of it. So we know that this was the last leaf that had been produced on this plant. And it's yellowing from down in the center upwards through the plant. So this isn't going to be when you any of those calcium or iron deficiencies, because they will generally start showing from the tips where the initial growing point starts, because it doesn't have any of those nutrients, so it can't produce that growth properly. And here already we have that growth, and here it's yellowing from in the base. So this is a slightly more serious than what this was. This is saying that I probably have crown rot because I've inspected the plant. There's no insects or anything on it. I can see there's an amazing root system. I can see on the top, I can see the media is all loose and viable. When you've got something like that, you know you've got crown rot starting in the center there. So the best thing to do is, this is where you do want to remove the leaf. You're going to remove this leaf and treat the inside with hydrogen peroxide to start with, and then do other treatments afterwards. So your initial quick fix treatment, I'll head for hydrogen peroxide first and then inspect the plant further afterwards. But that's just to show you what a different form of yellowing of your leaves can do to your plant, or mean for your plant, as opposed to the yellowing from the bottom. And always remember, with something like this, you want to get in before it starts going brown and mushy at the top. So this has to be done quickly. Well, I hope I've managed to explain some of the reasons for the yellowing of the leaves and what you need to look out for and how to fix the different types of yellowing that you're getting. Remember, it can be environmental, it can be the cold, the heat, the sun, but then you've got to look for where those might affect your leaf and what parts of the leaf it's going to start yellowing. If it's excess moisture, then it's generally the lower parts of the leaves that are going to start rotting and yellowing first, but you'll start noticing a rot at the base if your leaf is yellowing at the end. If it's from dehydration, remember, you're going to get that withering and wrinkling of your plant itself, along with those leaves that are yellowing. The whole plant is going to be dehydrated, and it's going to be drawing moisture and everything it can from those yellowing leaves. So there you're going to have to rehydrate your plant well. In other cases, remember, it could be the crown rot or nutrient deficiencies. Sorry, I'm getting all lost here again. Let me list them down easier. So it can be the environmental conditions. It can be the watering, either too much or too little. It can be insect infestations. Generally, they would need to be quite severe to cause this sort of yellowing. It could be infections, but then just remember, you're generally looking for the telltale signs of infections, like those black marks, the black squidgy spodges, the black squidgy spots, or the telltale signs of those fungal necrotic spots along with that yellowing. And then, of course, nutrient deficiencies and crown or stem rot. So as I said, the only way to ensure that you know how to look after an orchid with yellowing leaves is to inspect it and go through step by step to eliminate the problems, so that you know which one is causing it. And we have another video that shows the different yellowing caused by different nutrient deficiencies, and we'll drop that in the description box below. Also remember, Ed posts up a lot of information in that Buy Me a Coffee link there all the time, with a lot of orchid related content, and there's also yellowing of orchid leaves in there too. So if you want to know why your orchid leaves are yellowing, pop down there, have a look. There is also some members only gated content, so don't be shy. Sign up, become a member, and grow like a pro. If you have found any of this information helpful at all, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button down below, and that notification bell, bing bong, to be notified of all our upcoming content so you don't miss out on a thing. Help us grow as we help your orchids grow.